Everybody's muted, so we don't hear any background noise. Good morning, and thank you for attending another facilities training session. The topic of today's session is a review of the technology, building, and wiring checklist. This checklist has recently been updated, and we are going to talk about that today. This presentation will be led by Paul Shoemaker with the Division of School Planning and Projects Management, Office of Education Technology. As a reminder for all attendees, you can submit questions using the Q&A feature of the Teams application. All questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. You can submit them at any point during the presentation, but we will address them at the end of the presentation. And now I will turn this over to Mr. Paul Shoemaker.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Shoemaker. As Oksana said, I work with the Office of Education Technology, and I have been in charge of the building wiring checklist roughly since 2006. So we go through and review this document every so often, make sure that it is up to date with building wiring standards and with what the K-12 facilities are wanting to add in as they build their structures. So each year we review the document, and this year we've made some significant changes. Today we're going to go do a walkthrough of that document, review those changes, and if you have any questions at the end of the walkthrough, please don't hesitate to ask. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And can you see the building wiring checklist form?
They should be able to see it in a minute now. Okay. Now the wiring checklist is active.
Thank you. So the majority of the document has remained the same. There are just a few changes that we have put in both requests by the districts and to clarify some of the activities that go on. This document is required with all of the building projects simply so we are aware of what technology wiring is going into the school buildings and other facilities on their campuses and throughout the district. So in the general information, this content has pretty much remained the same. We're going to ask for the date that it's requested, the school name or the project name, the district, the school size of the building or project that's being worked on. Now, of course, if this is a bus garage or an athletic field, that does not need to be added. And then we're asking for the number of rooms in the building. In the past, this is used to reflect how many classrooms, but now this document is addressing so many other structures, we have changed that to the number of rooms in the building. The next phase is we ask what type of project is being put into place with this form. New construction, obviously, brand new building, something that's going up. A replacement is a complete replacement of an existing structure. The renovation is the reconstruction of an existing structure. We also have an update existing. That is where it's not necessarily a forklift upgrade of a building, but you may be changing one or two rooms as part of a renovation. Additional building would be new construction on a campus, or possibly it's a temporary building or a mobile classroom going in. Additional wiring would be strictly, you're not making any infrastructure changes to the building, but you're adding additional wiring. You may be doing additional running chases, you may be adding new video cabling, that type of thing. Now, one new item we have is we have a new item called no changes, that you're going to use all the existing wiring. This has come up in a handful of projects over the last few months where there are no technology wiring changes or additions in a project, and this is what you would check on the box. So what we're asking for in the form, and pardon me while I scroll back up, is if there are no changes to be applied, fill out this general information component at the top, and then check the no changes box. And then we just need the signatures that everybody's aware that there are no changes being done. Moving on to the funding sources, this section of the document has not changed. This is the same request as to whether they're using local funds, are they using any EdTech funds, what are the approximate costs for the technology wiring in this project, is it being addressed to reduce unmet need, and if there are any KETS contracts being used for any of the procurement for those wiring projects, we would like to get some feedback as to what contracts are being exercised. If there are components that do not fully meet KETS standards that are outlined in the KETS master plans, we ask that that be listed also, just so we have a record of anything that is outside of the standards requirements. The rest of the document at this stage, for the classroom wiring technology, these items have not changed. We have cleaned up the presentation of the document to where it's a little easier to scroll through. And we've also corrected all of the tablature so you can tab from one field to the next without it bouncing all over the place. We have added inside of the classroom and other areas this HDMI cable drop. We have had several districts that are now employing HDMI cabling for smart displays throughout their building. So we have added that component. If they have any low voltage intercom or speakers that they are deploying through the schools or any of their other facilities, we've added that component on as well. We've also recognized that it's just not the classroom that gets the wiring, technology wiring added to it. So for any wiring drops or access points that are being added, we've included hallways, cafeteria, conference rooms, the athletic fields, locker rooms. We also have an other here, so if there is something that comes up in the future that we haven't allocated for, that will be the failover for us to capture that information there. We also included for the hardwiring areas, things that are not wireless access points, HVAC systems and other control facilities. So if we have a utility company coming in and they want to be able to put remote access to those services, then we have a designation for those as well. The last item on the list is for security cameras. We have the traditional Ethernet connection and the R6, R11 cable drops. We're also asking that if there are any wireless cameras going in, that we can just get a camera count. We know that there are no wiring configurations for that as far as the low voltage technology, but we would like to be able to capture how many cameras are going into the schools or their related facilities, just for any questions that may come up regarding safety initiatives. So the last items within the wiring drop categories are dealing with the data centers and the wiring closets. This component has not changed, so we still have all of that the same as from the previous document. The historical information, this is strictly what is already existing in the campus or the individual buildings that are being worked on. Of course, if it's a new construction, there will be nothing to add here. But if it's a renovation or they're adding to a building, we would like to get an idea of what's already in place if they have records. We also ask that we get a good idea of what the existing distribution infrastructure for that wiring is. Are they running through air ducts or air chases? Are they using plastic conduit, metal conduit, O-rings, J-hooks, ladder racks? Just so we get a good feel for what they're doing. For example, if they're running through air ducts or air chases, we want to make sure they're using plenum cable in those applications for fire safety. So it's just an extra check to make sure that we're putting the correct wiring in for the particular distribution that they're using. Also in the existing wiring category, these are not required, but we ask that if a district or the contractor has any of the topology maps or wiring diagrams for distribution centers, the data wiring, any of the categories we have listed here, we would like to know that there is a record out there. We're not necessarily asking for copies of those at this stage, but to know that they do exist and that we could ask for them at a later date, it just helps us out for any future questions. The next component is asking the contractor that we expect them to be in full compliance with all commercial building and electrical codes for the Commonwealth of Kentucky and the United States. We reference those building codes below and have a link to be able to access those. There is a cost involved in being able to view those building codes, but we do provide the link if somebody needs to be able to go out there and find where they can get the access. At this point, we ask them if they agree to build under those requirements, and it's the simple checkbox. The next item is we ask if plenum cable is required in any of the building project. And if it is yes, please give us a brief description. So we want to cover whether or not they're running these down through wall chases, ceiling air ducts, etc., to make sure that we're meeting the fire code requirements. We ask what the maximum length is for their copper Cat6 cable lengths. We do not want these to exceed 300 feet. And then we ask them for their distribution plan for both data, their voice, and video systems. And video could include anything from security cameras to those interactive TV monitors that the schools are now putting in. We ask the contractor to describe how they label and identify all of the wiring, technology wiring going through the building. This would be both for any of the wall plate access or for punch down blocks or patch cable panels that would reside in the wiring closets or data centers. And then we ask them to please describe their testing and verification process for the wiring that they've just put in. What attenuation tests or connectivity tests that they use to verify that all of the connections are good. The last part of the document is with capturing signatures. Now, one thing that I did not mention at the beginning of this, which I apologize I missed, this document must be opened in Adobe Acrobat or Acrobat Reader for the signature capture to function properly. If you open it in a browser, you can still fill out the form and do all these things, but it will not capture your signature properly. So part of our guideline document that will accompany this will point out first thing that you must open this up in either Acrobat Reader or in the full-blown version of Acrobat. So when you go to sign your document, if you are the contractor or the architect, you'll just click in this field and it will, let's see if it'll prompt on the screen, it will prompt you and ask you for your digital signature. And you go ahead and go through those steps. If you don't have a digital signature configured, you can click on this button and it'll take you through the steps on creating that digital signature ID. It's very simple. It's like 4 steps. We also outline these steps inside that guide document that will accompany this form. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this out. When you sign your document, go ahead and date it on the day you have it ready to send out. And then we've added this new button. It's the email form button. And you can click this form or click this button, and it'll ask you if you want to open up your default email application. We've put the option in. If some of the contracting firms use a web email address, they can select via that system. But if you have a company provided email system, just leave it on the default email application. And when you click this, it will automatically bring up, and I need to bring it over into the screen, it will automatically bring up your blank email. It will have a subject title with the form listed. It'll already have the form attached. And all you need to do at this stage is to enter who you need to send this completed document to. I'm going to go ahead and discard this. If you are the design contractor or the architect, your next step in sending this document out will be to the district's chief information officer. And you can find their email address. If you don't already have it, you will be able to find their email address inside the open house applications that are available. And we will have links in the guide document on how to get those. And you can pull that email address, add it in, and send it off. It'll automatically email out to that destination. When that CIO receives the document, they will review it. They'll do their signature. They will process the email the same way and send it off to their CATS regional engineer. They will do a walkthrough of the form, making sure that there wasn't anything missed or any questions they may have. And then the next step on that is they send it to me. I do a final walkthrough, make sure that everything looks good and that it's ready to go on to the proper project manager inside the facilities management group at KDE. So that is in total the walkthrough of the building wiring checklist form. At this stage, does anyone have any questions?
Paul, we have no questions at this time.
Okay. Well, if anybody does have questions that come up, my email is part of this group meeting. You can reach out to me or Greg Dunbar. He will be able to get in touch with me easily. And I am more than glad to assist anybody if they have questions on how to fill the document out or how to send it or who to send it to. One last note, the new version 5 that we walked through today, it still has a couple of adjustments that need to be made to it, and I still have to run it through its 508 compliancy check. Once those are complete, we will post those on the KDE website. It'll be in the same location that the existing version 4.0 document is at. I will make sure to get facilities management a link to those new documents and distribute those to the contractors and architectural groups, so you'll be able to have access to the new version.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for the presentation. Greg, we have no questions. Is there anything you want to add?
I'd like to thank Paul for presenting, and for those of you who are in attendance for participating. We will have another meeting next month, about 4 weeks from now. Topic to be announced. And if there are no questions, thank you again, and hopefully you'll join us again next month. Thank you.